but I really think we can do such amazing work as judges, and we can impact our community in such big ways. The justices decide which of their assigned duties they don't want to do, and they give them to the hearing masters. So I'm tempted to use that expression, it rolls downhill, but I won't. I'll just leave that one alone.
Welcome, everybody, to Our Nevada Judges. My guest today is Amy Ferreira. Is that how it's pronounced?
Close. Ferreira.
Ferreira, okay.
Yes, but I've been called much worse than anything.
Me too, yeah, okay. And you are the candidate for the Las Vegas Justice Court 8,
yes,
correct?
You've got it.
Okay. The first question that I always ask is, why the heck do you want to be a judge? Mm-hmm. That's a tough, tough job.
It is, and that's a fair question, and very many people ask that question. I can tell you that I have wanted to be a judge since I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And I am so close to reaching that goal, and it's just so exciting for me. When I was 4, both my parents worked, and so my grandmother watched me when my parents were at work. Every day, Monday through Friday, she made me sit down next to her and watch the People's Court. And
oh my God, I'm so old.
At that point in time, it was Judge Wapner was the
judge.
Right,
yes.
And so this was our tradition every day. We would sit down, we would talk about the cases, we would talk about who we thought should win, why they should win, how we thought the judge was going to rule, and why we thought the judge was going to rule that way. And so I was the weird 4-year-old who went to preschool and said, I'm going to be a judge. And everyone else wanted to be a Disney princess or a race car driver, or all the exciting things.
Right, yeah.
And here I was, just this little like nerdy kid who just loved the law and was so passionate about it from such a young age. So this has always been my path. I went to college knowing I would go to law school. I graduated law school knowing that I was going to eventually end up where I hope to end up in November after the election.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great grandma.
She's the best.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to sit there and watch, but to discuss the cases and make you think about what was being said and pay attention, that's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
We should all have grandmas like that, right?
Know. Without her, I don't know that I'd be sitting here,
Yeah.
quite frankly. She just sparked such an interest in me with that.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about, I mean, we can go to the website and we can see all the stuff about you, but what would you like people to really know about you?
Well, there's a lot of things. I think first and foremost, I would want everybody to know that I'm a regular member of this community. I'm like them in so many ways. I'm a wife. I'm a mom. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I'm a homeowner. I have concerns about community safety.
Right.
I also would like everybody to know that I believe I am passionate and compassionate equally when it comes to the law and when it comes to members of our community. Some people might know that I'm very passionate about animals. My husband and I have a very small, humble farm full of rescue animals.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so we've got a revolving
I'll have to
door.
have you in someday and talk about that.
I would love it so much.
Yes.
I would love it so much. And so I think that in a lot of ways I represent a lot of people in our community. I think sometimes we sort of take the human factor out of the judicial system. You know,
Yes.
You've got this person in this, strange black robe sitting at a seat higher than everybody else. And I think that sometimes causes people to feel like the person sitting there can't relate to them, doesn't understand them, won't listen to them, will make a decision regardless of what they have to say. And I hope that everybody understands that that will never be me. I've been a hearing master for 4 years. So I sit in a black robe in that high chair, making decisions every day. And I would like to think that the people who appear before me would tell you they feel seen and they feel heard, even if they disagree with what my ultimate ruling is in the end. And that's kind of all we can ask for.
What do you think is the most important role of a judge?
The most important duty, I guess, of a judge is to remain fair and impartial under every circumstance. And that can be difficult. There are a lot of times when judges are called upon to make a legally sound decision, even though they don't personally agree with that legally sound decision. And so to have to sit there and remain so steadfast in your obligation to be fair and impartial in doing justice, equal justice for both sides is difficult, but it's certainly a task that I perform every day and that I'm willing to perform when I get elected.
So as a hearing master, I mean, you're basically doing the same duties that a judge would do.
Correct.
And why justice court? Did you pick that for a particular reason?
Yes, I think justice court is one of the most important positions that we have here in our community, and here's why. You will hear people give you negative opinions of our judicial system if you ask them. And I think because justice court is the first step in what is oftentimes a very long and arduous process, you can really affect people's perception and experience when you catch them on the front end. So for very many people, it's their first time in a courtroom, whether they're a litigant, a defendant, whether it's a victim, whether it's a witness, their experience is sort of dictated by the person who's running the courtroom. If they run their courtroom in a kind, respectful, time efficient kind of way, that person might have a positive view of our judicial system. If you get someone sitting up there who acts like they're smarter than everyone or better than everyone, or they don't take anybody's time constraints
You
into
mean like
account.
Judge Judy?
I won't mention any names.
No.
She's no Judge Wapner, but yeah, so I really think that you can have a real big impact on people before they get kind of jaded by some of the things that we often hear from our community members.
And basically, the decisions that you're making from the bench can have a positive or negative effect on the person standing in front of you.
Absolutely.
You have the ability to help steer them in the right direction,
Mhm.
or just say you're a lost cause, you know?
Right.
So that's a lot of responsibility, and that's why I always ask the question, why do you want to be a judge?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I could do it. I don't think that I would. I don't know. I just don't think I could do it. It's too. You're affecting too many people's lives,
That's true.
and it's an extremely important decision. And everything that you do, you can, and in a lot of cases, you're seeing humanity at its worst. And how do you stay positive?
Well, to put it into perspective,
Yes.
I was a prosecutor for 13 years before I was appointed as a hearing master. And some of my assignments when I was at the district attorney's office, I was on the special victims unit, and I prosecuted child sexual assault cases when victims were 10 years old or younger. And so to say that I've seen the worst sides of humanity is absolutely accurate. While I was on that unit, I started the first ever Clark County District Attorney's Office Animal Cruelty Unit. So I was simultaneously prosecuting sexual predators and people who preyed upon animals. And I feel like you have to sort of be able to compartmentalize that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I will also tell people that when you are in that kind of a situation, when you see a glimmer of positive, a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of you've done something that has really had a positive impact, it means so much more than if you were just rainbows and butterflies all day, every day.
Right.
And so I think that you have to be able to put things into perspective. And I think I have learned very well how to be able to do that and to continue to function in normal everyday life in a way that is appropriate and helpful for the community.
You brought up, and I'm glad you did. You brought up the animal rights thing, and there was something that I saw on your website and that I had to question.
Yeah.
You were given an award. You were recognized for your leadership in combating illegal animal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a legal animal abuse?
No, but there are things that you and I might consider abusive that the law disagrees with.
Okay, that was the only clarification I was looking for, because I thought to myself, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right.
Yep, you got it.
So thank you for clarifying
course.
that. Because one of the things that I've heard more often, or just all the time, is the caseload that judges are burdened with is sometimes overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you think that you can do in your courtroom to help alleviate that, or to help reduce that stress or that burden?
Yes. And I would never say that we're burdened with those cases. I might say we're blessed with those cases because we are doing such important work for everybody in the community. It's not just about the person who's standing in front of you. It's about their impact on everybody who lives here. And we want to make sure that Las Vegas remains a safe and beautiful place for us to raise our families. So I understand that why you're using the word burden.
Right.
And it is burdensome in that regard in terms of volume. What we can do, I think, is make sure that we streamline the process, right? If a case gets continued 5 times, that case is going to drag on. That case is going to be pending, despite the fact that all these new cases are coming in.
Right.
So I think as a judicial officer, you really have to streamline your process. You have to keep good control over your calendar. You have to be excellent at time management. And I think that I have learned how to do all those things as a hearing master. This has been such a blessing for me to take that little step to my final step of being a justice of the peace.
I'm going to say this, and I definitely, absolutely mean this as a compliment.
Okay.
You sound very confident.
Thank you.
And I think that as a judge, you should be. That you have committed to, this is what I want to do.
Yes.
I know I can do it. I have the talent and the ability to carry out the duties of a judge. And I admire that. So,
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to, I didn't mean that you're overconfident. I
Right.
mean, it's nice to see someone who is going after their goal, and you
Yes.
basically already see yourself in that position, don't you?
I do. I mean, this has been my end game for 30 some odd years. And so the fact that it's just so close is just so exciting to me. And I feel like sometimes I can't even contain, the excitement. And people are like, you're such a weirdo, Amy. Like, you just love this stuff so much. And I do, because I think it's so interesting and it's so important. And I really do think, people say it's so cliche, but I really think we can do such amazing work as judges, and we can impact our community in such big ways. And so for that, I'm excited.
I've had an experience with a traffic violation and going before a judge,
Okay.
and there was probably 10 people ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm watching the proceedings. And by the time it got to me, I was really impressed with this judge. She treated everyone in that courtroom with respect. She was fair. She was firm. She didn't, she talked to each individual like there was nobody else around, and that they mattered, and that they were, and I hope that you can be that way too.
Yes.
And when it got to me and the situation that I found myself in to get the traffic violation was really a stupid mistake that I made,
Yeah.
and just made a bad judgment there when I was going one way and should have went the other. And she let me explain my situation, and I thought that what she I broke the law. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
I didn't mean to, but I did.
Right.
So, I had to pay a fine, but I thought she was fair. I thought, well, I walked out of that courtroom and said, that was cool.
Good.
You know?
That's always the result
Yes.
we have to
And,
have. Yeah.
and, you're not going to be able to do that all the time.
Right, right.
But, if you can get that the majority of time, it helps us all, because I do agree that we need to get a little more faith back in our judicial system.
Absolutely.
It has taken a beating in recent years. Some of it's justified, some of it's not. Some of
Agreed.
it's just, the press. But anyway, I'm in these interviews that we've been doing, I restores my faith.
Oh, good.
Not only in the judicial system, but also in humanity.
Yeah.
We have some good people out there running for office. And I'm gonna use my little speech now. A few years back, maybe 5-6 years ago, I had a judge in here that we were doing an interview with, and realized that there are so many people out there that when they go into the voting booth, they're not going all the way down the ballot.
Yes.
There's something like 20-30% of the people who vote don't get down there, and these people are the most important people in our day-to-day lives.
Yes.
Our judges, our school boards, our city council, the mayor, all of these are extremely important to us, and they can affect how we live and everything that happens to us on a daily basis. So vote the whole ticket all the way down. Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
I get on my soapbox once in a
Listen,
while.
you just get right on that soapbox. I agree with you 100%.
What have you found has been the hardest thing in campaigning?
There are a lot of things that are challenging and also that are wonderful about campaigning. So because I always have to be positive, I'm going to start with positive things. The most amazing thing about campaigning thus far is I have had the opportunity to meet and mix with different segments of our community that maybe I wouldn't have normally interacted with in just my day-to-day things,
Right.
right? Like if they don't work where I work and they don't go to the gym that I don't go to, I probably haven't met them,
Right.
And so that has been super exciting. I have met some incredible people. And to use your phrase, it has restored my faith in humanity because there are so many amazing people who live here. The difficult parts are you have to have a little bit of a thick skin. I
Yeah.
mean, things are not always easy and people are not always kind. And so when you're a person who cares very much about what people think and how they perceive the judicial system and what they think of you and all that kind of stuff, you have to really put things in perspective. And so that's challenging. That's something I work at every day. I always tell people that I think, entire world changed when I read this book, and it's called The Four Agreements.
Okay.
And I happened to read it when I was in Japan. And there was a section of,
I love Japan.
it's amazing. There was a section of the book about not taking things personally and understanding that if somebody treats you in a way that you feel is unkind or undeserved, that it's never about you and it's usually about them. And so that has really helped me in that way. You might have already picked up on the fact that I am a very caring person. I think I try to be sensitive to everything, which is excellent in many ways, but it also makes things tougher when you're so sensitive to everything and you're
Yeah.
always wanting to make sure everybody's happy and satisfied and all those things. So that has been a challenge, but it's a challenge that I am excited to take on. And I have just learned so much through this process.
I'm glad to hear that. What would you like the people to know about why they should vote for you? What is important for you to get out there so that you can convince them that you're the person for that particular job?
Yeah, so I think that I am a person who brings to the table a plethora of experience. As I said, I was a prosecutor for 13 years. I was appointed to the bench in 2020, so I have been doing the duties of a justice of the peace for 4 years. For those people who don't know, hearing masters get their assignments by the justices. The justices decide which of their assigned duties they don't want to do, and they give them to the hearing masters. So I'm tempted to use that expression, it rolls downhill, but I won't. I'll just leave that one alone. But I believe I have proven to the community that I'm able to accomplish this task. I don't think it's a risk voting for me because I have proven that I can do the job. In 2022, I was named Las Vegas Justice Court Employee of the Year. And we have hundreds of employees in Justice Court. And so I think that that is exceptionally important. I also think my commitment to the safety of our community is something that people should not only be concerned with, but should take note of. I was a prosecutor for 13 years, and I really focused my work on some of the most vulnerable members of our community, children, animals. I ended my career as the team chief of the domestic violence unit. So I'm not somebody who shies away from difficult decisions, difficult cases, things of that nature. And at the end of the day, I think I'm somebody who can relate to very many people in our community.
You're the type of person that takes the jobs that nobody else wants.
That has been said before. Yes, that's true.
I can tell, yeah.
Yeah, that is true. But I will persevere and I will blood, sweat, and tears, whatever needs to be done, if the end result is something that's needed in our community. And that's really how the animal cruelty unit
Well, you
started.
don't learn anything from the easy ones.
Absolutely not.
And I used to be the same way.
Yeah.
You know, give me the jobs that's the toughest that nobody else wants, because that's how I'm going to learn. That's
Yeah.
how I'm going to improve myself.
Absolutely.
So, cool. What do you think is going to be most challenging for you when you get on the bench?
Most challenging, that's tough because there's going to be a lot of challenging things. I think the things that are challenging to me now as a hearing master will be the same things that are challenging to me as a justice of the peace because they are so similarly situated. So being concerned with whether people feel like they've been seen and heard is always my number one concern.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you a very quick story.
Please.
Another justice of the peace came to me. This is probably, we're going back over a year now. And she said, "Oh, one of my friends appeared in front of you in small claims court." And I said, "Oh, really?" And she said, "Yeah. He was saying how nice you were, how patient you were, that he just thought you were so lovely." And I said, "Oh, who was it?" And then she said the person's name. And I said, "Wait a second, I ruled against him. I didn't rule in his favor." She goes, "Yeah, oh yeah, no, I know, he told me." And so that to me was just verification that what I have always tried to do, I did in that scenario,
Yeah.
which was make somebody feel seen, heard, like they had a fair chance, that I didn't make a decision before the end of their case, and that even though they probably disagreed with my ruling, they appreciated the way I handled it. And for me, that's just what I always
What
aim
more
to
could
do.
you ask for?
Nothing, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have one particular case that kind of sticks out in your mind that you go, wow, that was the best decision I ever made?
Ooh, one case? I don't know
But
about
it doesn't have
one
to be
case.
one,
There's a lot of cases that stick out in my mind for various reasons, both when I was at the prosecutor's office and as a hearing master. I mean, there's criminal cases, there's civil cases. I don't know that there's one that stands out in my mind. I can tell you kind of a little bit of a funny story. I was sitting in initial appearance court, and that is the first time somebody makes an appearance after they've been arrested. And so they usually come into court 12 to 24 hours after their arrest. And so apparently I had seen a gentleman in initial appearance court, and about a day later, I got a phone call at the office, and it was an older woman, and she started like this. Oh, hi, honey. You saw my grandson yesterday, and he has another case, and I can't find it, and I can't figure it out. And so, normally you wouldn't just call the judicial officer directly.
I didn't know you could do that.
Listen, I didn't either until this woman called. And so, sure enough, I was able to look up. It was a civil case. What he appeared in front of me for was criminal, but he also had a civil matter. I was able to find it and give his grandmother the court date. And at the end of the conversation, she said, "Oh, honey, you've just been so helpful." And I thought to myself, you know what? This is good, and this is important, that even when we're not sitting on the bench, if we have the opportunity to help somebody in a legally and ethically appropriate way, we help them. Right at the end of the day, we're all just members of the community, and we all have information that is easy for us to get that might not be easy for someone else to get.
I've noticed that a lot of judges that I've had the opportunity to meet do quite a bit of work outside the court.
Yeah.
Charity work or setting up programs or, things like that. And that's, to me, that's what makes the person.
Yeah.
It's okay, you're doing your job, but you see other needs that you can help with. And I think that's great. That ought to be a requirement before you can be a judge.
Yeah. I think it tells you a lot about a person, right? Because even though you end up as a judge and even though you're sitting in that chair, it's like I said, we've taken this human factor out. Like, you're still the same person you are off the bench.
Right.
So if somebody, goes around the community and they're yelling and screaming and they're nasty, and I don't think that's the person you want sitting on the bench.
Right.
Whereas if there's somebody who's kind and compassionate and concerned and willing to help, like, that's probably the person you want sitting there,
And because you have a certain amount of discretion within the law.
Yes.
So that you are able to consider factors that may not be within the parameters that are presented to you as a judge, And if you listen to the person that's in front of you, you may find those things out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's important to have all the information. If you're making a decision without all of the information, how good is your decision? So I think it's really important for people to take those things into account and not be so quick to just kind of judge a book by its cover, which I think sometimes happens, right? You read something and it sounds awful, and then you stop listening, right? But you can't stop listening, not when you're sitting in that seat. And so I think that having somebody who's patient enough and considerate enough to hear it out, whatever it might be, is important.
Do you find it's difficult, and that's not the right word, if you had your druthers, okay, and you have a defendant or you have someone in front of you, can the attorney sometimes be a detriment to that person? I don't know if I'm asking that properly.
No, you are. And I think the point you're getting at is, can sometimes an attorney make it worse for their client?
Yes.
In theory, yes, but it is the judge's job to make sure that no matter how the attorney is behaving, you're not making a decision based on that. Right? We all have different personalities. We all have different courtroom etiquette. And I think as a judge, you can absolutely never hold an attorney's etiquette against a litigant
Yeah.
because it's not the litigant.
Right.
And so I think, yeah, you've got to really have a little bit of patience there sometimes and understand that people are coming from different perspectives. Like right now, as a hearing master, oftentimes the cases that I handle are pro se litigants, meaning they're unrepresented by
Right.
counsel.
Right.
And so, as you might imagine, some of those people have never been to court before. We
All they have is what they've seen on TV.
on TV.
Yeah.
And some of these TV shows make you think you can go into court and yell and scream and interrupt, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you have to cut people a little bit of a break, give them a little bit of extra leeway, and certainly let them know that their behavior isn't necessarily appropriate, and give them the opportunity to change their behavior. Certainly if they ignore what you've said and they go on and on, that's a different situation. You got to keep control of your courtroom. But I think sometimes we make too many assumptions about what people think is normal etiquette. People don't know sometimes. How I was raised is different than this person standing in front of me. How my parents thought it was appropriate for me to act might not be how their parents thought it was appropriate for them to act. Maybe they didn't have parents. I mean, you just don't know. When someone's standing in front of you, it's like a blank slate. You have no idea. And so I think you kind of have to give people an opportunity to behave in a manner that is appropriate once they've been told what is and is not appropriate.
So there's a lot of talk and going around about the bail situation.
Oh yeah.
And we need bail reform. And it's I don't think, just from what I know about the process, it's not that we're trying to, or you're trying to get rid of bail, but it's making a decision that based on, if I hold this person for a certain amount of bail money, there's a possibility that they're going to lose their job because they can't come up with the money. Right. They're going to lose their job. They could lose, the house. They could lose everything. And so how do you make that decision as to whether or not this particular person should or shouldn't be released on their own recognizance, or $100 bail, or $10,000 bail, or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts in that area?
I do. So that's what I preside over every Sunday. We have initial appearance court every day of the calendar year, including holidays. So as I mentioned, it rolls downhill. So I do every Sunday and every holiday. So on Christmas, I was doing the initial appearance calendar. So that's what I do. There is a case that came out a couple years back, I guess now, Valdez Jimenez.
Yes.
Told us that you had to set the least restrictive means needed to ensure two things: safety to the community and a return to court. Mm-hmm. And so in considering those two things, you're allowed to look at a whole bunch of things. You're allowed to look at criminal history. You're allowed to look at financial circumstances. You're allowed to look at other members of the community who might be able to support the person who appears in front of you. You're able to look at a vast majority of things. And at the end of the day, I think it's important, again, to have all the information and consider all those factors. If somebody is a danger to the community, that's one thing.
Right.
If somebody did something illegal, dumb, crazy, but there's no suggestion that they would ever do that thing again, that's different than somebody who has a criminal record,
a history of
that shows
right.
a pattern.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I'm just so grateful for my experience at the district attorney's office, because I feel like in a lot of ways I can look at certain things and identify red flags very quickly. And I think that gave me a very big advantage when it comes to having to make bail decisions. It's funny because we have what they call pro tem judges that fill in when a judge is unavailable,
right.
like
yeah.
a substitute teacher, basically. And there's one in particular who always tells me, my least favorite thing is doing initial appearance court because it's so hard for me to decide. Like sometimes I just don't know. And it's a challenge. And I think as long as you're making a decision that's rooted in a logical reason why you've made that decision. I mean, listen, nobody's a fortune teller, right? You could
right.
release somebody from custody and they go kill 5 people, right? But was there something that suggested that to you? If the answer is no, it's a one-off. There's nothing you could have done. If you're looking at somebody who has convictions for violent offenses and you release them from custody and then they go kill 5 people, that's a very different situation.
Right. Excuse me again. I don't know where to go from this.
Is it because I said someone killed 5 people? Now I've thrown you all off track.
Yeah.
That was just a hypothetical.
Okay, good. So is there a difference in judges who have come from the defense side or the prosecution side? That may be an unfair question to ask. Do you think that maybe one might be better equipped than the other?
Well, I mean, I know what you're asking and what you're getting at. And I think the answer is not necessarily,
Okay.
right? I think people who have experience doing criminal law that want to sit as a criminal judge have a lot of very important, necessary experience. Because just like I gained all those abilities to pick out red flags when I
Right.
was a prosecutor, somebody who has worked as a public defender or as a private defense attorney, they've also figured out what those red flags are because they have done so many cases. So I don't necessarily think one would be better than the other just based off of that. There's also kind of a mindset that people lean one way or the other.
Right.
I don't even necessarily think that that's true. I think when you have a job to do and you represent somebody, whether it's the state of Nevada, whether it's a defendant, you are advocating on behalf of someone. When you take the bench, your job as an advocate is done. You're advocating for justice. That's the only client you have to serve.
Right.
And so I think that maybe we have seen examples of people who have taken the bench and sort of tried to continue to advocate in certain ways.
You know, if you've been in town any length of time, we've had a few on the
Right,
bench that
right.
had no business being there.
Right.
And I think that part of that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is we need to find a better way to educate ourselves about who's running for office.
Yes.
And not make it a popularity contest or who has the most money.
Yep.
You know, how do we as voters figure out who's the most suited for this particular position or this job? I don't have an answer to that.
Right.
So
It's tough.
yeah,
When we allow, the general public to elect our judges, we have to recognize that many members of the general public don't have any experience with the judges that they're selecting.
right.
And there's a vast many people who do their research and they do good research and they make an informed decision. Not everybody falls into that category.
Right. I try, but it's tough.
It's tough.
And especially when you have, what was it? Was it last election or the one before? We had something like 20 or 30 judges on the ballot.
Yeah.
And
it's wild.
it's like, now what?
Yeah, it's
that
overwhelming.
takes a lot of time, and most of us don't have that time.
Right.
Hence our Nevada judges. But so I just try to throw those plugs in when I can.
Good job. Very discreet.
Listen, I've worked with Alex for a few years now, and I don't have any real ownership association or anything like that.
Yeah.
I have a place where he can perform certain services, and I love his philosophy. I love what he's doing for the community and for judges. When he first started, I remember that first year, he was getting threats. The judges, they wanted to get him. And then they slowly found out that, wait a minute, this guy is doing something that is making us all better.
Yeah.
Because there were judges out there that had no overseeing, or there was no consequences for what they were doing.
Yeah.
And now the public has a place to go and say whether or not this person has been doing a good job. And there's no opinions in there. It's all facts. It's data that he's mined from the Supreme Court. And so what more could you ask for?
Right.
Reviews. So is there anything else that you'd like that we haven't covered that you want to kind of cover and tell the people out there?
Well, I just want to first say thank you for having me.
Oh.
I appreciate the invitation so much. It's funny because in this process, not everybody is so willing to chat with everybody or to invite everybody or to equally invite everybody. And so for that, I'm just so grateful. And I appreciate the time so much. I think I've probably made it clear that I'm just so excited and so passionate. I think I'm equally passionate about the community and about the law. So I think the best way I can serve this community is as a justice of the peace. I've been serving since 2006. I'm an East Coast girl, and I moved out here to accept my position at the district attorney's office.
Oh, where are you from?
Just south of Boston by Cape Cod kind of
okay.
area. Yeah. I thought I'd be here for a year That I do something crazy, go to Vegas, prosecute cases, and then I just so fell in love with this community.
It happens to a lot of
It
us.
sucks you in here.
Yeah.
It's
There's
like
some
nowhere else.
super, super great people here.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I mean, yeah, if you we all have our bad sides and stuff like that, but I think overall, when it comes down to it, you can count on the people here.
Absolutely. I completely agree
Yeah.
with you. Mhm.
So anyway, Amy, thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you. It's been
in.
a pleasure.
And thank you all again for paying attention and trying to educate yourselves. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.